Some of you have asked me what tools would I recommend if I was just starting out to rebuild motorcycles. And honestly, man, that is such a tough question because it really depends. It depends on your budget, depends on your living situation, it depends on what you're trying to rebuild. I'm gonna let this thing down. And what my philosophy is I'm just gonna get the tools that I can afford, and I'm gonna get the tools that work. And if I don't have that tool, I just kind of figure it out. So a lot of my tools, gonna be honest with you, they come from Harbor Freight. And if there's a specific tool I need, I get it from Amazon, or in my case, I've gotten a lot of tools from Motion Pro. But I decided rather than trying to go over each individual tool that I have that helps me rebuild bikes, I wanted to go over three big tools, essential tools that have helped me to rebuild bikes. And one's a motorcycle lift or a jack that I'm sitting on now, and the platform jack also that I'm sitting on top of the jack, and also a motorcycle wheel chock and stand. So this jack came from Harbor Freight, cost me about $100, and I have used this even before rebuilding bikes. I've had a lift, well, I didn't own one, but when I moved into this garage, I decided to go ahead and buy one because I knew that in the beginning, a motorcycle lift or a jack is essential to get the bike elevated, to get wheels off of the bike, to do oil changes, to see under, to do specific things. A motorcycle lift or a jack is essential. Now, I took a different route. Some people having this much space, they would have said, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and get a motorcycle table lift. Well, I looked at it from the perspective of that's a lot of space. And I did not want to use up the space that I have because in my mindset, I thought in the future, I'm gonna have more bikes. And I don't want my floor space taken up by a table lift. So I decided to get this because I knew that I could move it around, fold it up, get it in and out of the way. So this thing, man, is very bare bones. It's a hydraulic lift. You have something to raise it up with, and you have something to lower it. It has these little studs that you can twist it into the ground to keep it from moving as much. It has safety levels, so if the hydraulics on the thing just fail, it'll stop at one of these points depending on how far up it is. Never had an issue with it. I've had bikes sit on this thing for months at a time. Not a single problem. There's also a little strap point. I had to strap the frames down so they wouldn't move around. But yeah, this whole thing, this is a workhorse. And what's crazy is that even though this is a motorcycle jack, I've used it to lift up other things like my toolbox or my thing that has the parts on it. You can lift multiple things up with this because it can lift up to 1,500 pounds and not just motorcycles. So this little jack can lift up to 1,500 pounds. And I don't have a motorcycle here that weighs 1,500 pounds. I think my Chiefs weigh 670 pounds. But when I buy a tool, including all these tools, I try to find a purpose for them outside of the one thing that they're meant for. This motorcycle lift is meant for motorcycles, but I can use it for multiple things. So if anything that I mentioned here, the takeaway is get a motorcycle lift. Even if you're not rebuilding bikes, it is essential to have a motorcycle lift or a jack so you can elevate a motorcycle. I was doing an oil change on the Victory Hammer the other day, and it sits so low that I couldn't get my oil catch can up under it. And the motorcycle lift actually, even if I put it right where the pivot points were, it was blocking the oil field drain. So what I ended up doing, I used the motorcycle lift and put it more towards the front near the rectifier area. And it was sketchy, but I got the front end lifted up just enough where I can get the oil catch can up under there. No problems, and it allowed me to do what I needed to do. So this thing, motorcycle lifts are workhorses. So you're gonna have to determine for your own specific needs if having this versus a table is going to be what you need. But I can tell you that for $100, this thing, even if it's not just this one, for $100, you just can't beat having a motorcycle lift, right? The platform jack, Harbor Freight. This is a table lift, essentially. It can hold up to I think 500 or 700 pounds. I don't remember exactly, but I think I paid right at 120 bucks for it also. I don't necessarily remember, but I use this platform jack to hold the motor from my motorcycle. So what I did was I used this motorcycle lift to sit the motor on and pull it out of the frame. And then I transferred it from this motorcycle lift to this platform jack. And the motor sat on this platform jack before I moved it over to the table and I took it apart. Even further, like split the cases. It sat on this, and I even took the cylinder heads and everything. This thing is a workhorse. And the reason I didn't get an engine stand is because I felt like, at least in my experience, that engine stand would only be used for that purpose as an engine stand. And I wanted something that I could use for multiple things. So when these two are not necessarily in use, rather than have them sitting side by side, I can sit this on top of this and lower this all the way down and move it under a table, and it's taking up less space. So I think I used it to work on the tank. For my Indian Chief, I was taking the fuel pump out and taking the emblems off because the motor was taking up the table. This thing has multiple purposes, and I can sit a bunch of different things on it. So this platform jack, if you're like me and you don't want a full-fledged engine stand, you can definitely get some stuff done with this. This combo right here is one of my favorite combos, I say, in the whole garage, because they go hand in hand with each other, even though they're not necessarily meant for each other. But a tool is a tool, right? A tool is something that makes doing a specific thing easier. And these together is just like one big tool. But the next thing I got is a motorcycle wheel chock, which typically is used on like trailers and trucks to hold motorcycles or something, hold the wheel from moving. But in motorcycles, they're really beneficial to keep the bike upright. Bartholomew, my Bartholomew, no, you fell over. I gotta put Bartholomew back. The purpose of this, just like a tool, it has multiple purposes, but what I've used it for, it has been to keep the motorcycle upright so I could get the motor out of the frame. So the first use I had was for this exact bike. When I was tearing it apart, it was wrecked, the front end was jacked up. I used the motorcycle jack, lifted the bike up, and then moved this under the front wheel at the time. And then I lowered the front wheel into the motorcycle the motorcycle stand, and that kept the bike upright, tore the bike all the way down, and then it allowed me to get the motor out. And then in reverse, I did the same thing. Jacked the bike up, sat it down, moved it in, and it just worked. So the only thing I can say about this is if you're trying to push a motorcycle into it, like ride it into it, you need weight behind it because the motorcycle is just gonna push it. This weighs a lot more than this does. So unless you put it behind something or put something behind it, like I used the concrete wall one time, I put that in front of it and it allowed me to ride the bike straight into it. The problem was I couldn't get the bike out once I got it in. So I needed my wife to help me pull it out. So this thing, again, I think I paid like 80 bucks for it from Harbor Freight. And it is really beneficial because like right now the bike is sitting upright, it's not on this kickstand, and it allows me to continue to work on the bike and with the motor in there. So when it's time, if I really wanted to, I could jack the bike up, move this out of the way once I get the kickstand on it and it's done. And right now I can put the whole bike back together without the kickstand. I don't need it because like I don't need it. The bike is not on this kickstand right now. There's no kickstand. You can see the bike is, well, this axle is twisted, but the bike is sitting pretty much straight up. And I'll show you this. Oh, Bartholomew, no, you fell over. But yeah, you see the bike is not, this is me rocking this pretty substantially, and this is more than what you probably be experiencing when you're trying to work on the bike or trying to even get a motor in, but it definitely keeps this thing playing it very well. These are 3 huge tools that I use every day to rebuild bikes. And like I said, even if you are not rebuilding bikes, these tools can help you do other things like that motorcycle lift in combination with that platform jack. In combination with this, you can keep the bike upright and do various different things. Even if like this can be used on a tractor, on a trailer or on the back of a tailgate of a truck to help you keep the bike upright. These tools have multiple reasons, and you can see that they don't take up a lot of space. When I'm not using it, I can technically hang it on the wall and it's done until I need it again. So it really just depends. So I hope these 3 major tools can help somebody out there that want to get into motorcycle maintenance, and hopefully this kind of explains why I choose the tools and what I do with them. So I hope that brings you value, and yeah, maybe you might get into it yourself. So I hope that helps.